presentation on the Rwandan genocide. So I'm pretty sure you guys already know a lot about the history about the Rwandan genocide, so we just wanted to basically share Immaculate's story during it. So at the end of World War I, Belgium accepted the League of Nations mandate of 1916 to colonize Rwanda, and this resulted in the separation of the three tribes, and this was the first stage of classification. And the next stage of symbolization was when they handed out the identity cards. Next, from 1959 to 1962, the Belgians turned against the Tutsis, and there was a bloody Hutu revolt that overthrew the Tutsi monarchy. And there were a bunch of Tutsis murdered during this time, and Immaculate's parents were there when the killings were taking place. However, they did not. They were not harmed, but they saw what happened. And there was also a coup when many Tutsis were persecuted, and at that time Immaculate was around 3 and she had experienced it, and she had to move out of her home when it got destroyed. So Immaculate's parents' views are that they don't really care about which tribe you're from, and they believe that what tribe you're from doesn't determine what kind of person you are. And Immaculate's from a really tight and close-knit family, and they all share the same view. So when the Hutu president decided to incur something called the ethnic balance, which is basically when the schools and jobs all had to reflect the country's makeup, and this resulted in it being really hard for Tutsis to get into a good school or get a good job, because only a small percentage of Tutsis would be allowed, which is around 15%, and a larger amount of Hutus will be allowed. This affected Immaculate because due to the ethnic balance, it was really hard for her to get into a good school, although she was one of the top students. And in 1990, when a group of Tutsi rebel soldiers living in Uganda crossed the border, Immaculate was at school, and when it was announced, she felt kind of guilty because she knew that they were going to cause trouble, but at the same time, she felt kind of excited to get her power back and face the discrimination. So, when this all started, the president started putting in fake information on the news shows about how there were Tutsis in Kigali trying to kill all Hutus. And they started calling the Tutsis cockroaches, and and the president was telling everyone to put the Tutsis in jail. And Immaculate's dad was one of the Tutsis that were arrested by his own Hutu friend. And there were a bunch of roadblocks being set up at this time, and Immaculate was trapped at one of these roadblocks. And this is part of the preparation stage, because at this time a bunch of basically poor Hutu men were being given drugs and machetes, and they were just being handed out to them. And a few months after the roadblock experience, Immaculate's roadblock experience, the president traveled to Tanzania to try and sign a peace treaty. After that, a military officer named Theonest Bagasora vowed to never make peace with the Tutsis and promised to return to Rwanda to prepare an apocalypse. And this is a stage of organization started by this military officer. After there were rumors of Tutsis being murdered around by the Interahamwe, Damascene, which is Immaculate's brother that she was the closest to, actually saw some Interahamwe men around their house throwing grenades, and they thought about leaving the house and escaping through Lake Kivu, but their father said no. So shortly after, the Interahamwe cut off their escape, so they had nowhere to go. And that night, right after the president was killed, there were a bunch of Tutsis that were killed around Kigali, and one of the 20 families that were killed belonged to Immaculate's uncle. So after that, basically this killing rate skyrockets, and this is the start of extermination. Immaculate's and the Interahamwe also started finding the names of all the Tutsis families, and they looted and burned down the houses. And Immaculate's house was one of the houses that the Interahamwe broke into and smashed everything. So if they also targeted suspected houses for hidden Tutsis, and they found both the moderate Hutu and the Tutsis would be killed. This is like the starting stage of polarization. So you're either for us or against us. So even if you're Hutu and you're for the Tutsis, they're going to kill you. Immaculée had to hide with 6 other women in a Hutu pastor's small bathroom stall in his master bedroom, and his house was searched many times because his own son suspected him of being a moderate Hutu. So, yeah. And the Interahamwe dressed up outside, and they did many chants outside the houses, and it's really hard to describe how she must have felt, so we came up with a simulation.
So, when she was in the bathroom, it was only 3 by 4 feet, and there were 7 women, including her. So they were obviously quiet because people were searching the house, and they had the wardrobe in front of the door. So we need 7 volunteers to come and simulate what it would be like. And this is the toilet.
Is this my cue?
Yeah.
Okay. So Leah, let's get Shiv, Sean, Mac, Adam, Samara, and Adrian. How many is that? Need 2 more? All right. DeBow and Singer. Is that too many?
That's like
Yeah,
9.
that's one too many.
Okay, Allie, sorry, you're safe. Get in there, Sophia.
How high? You can't stand on that. Okay, so just stay
They
there.
had to crouch. Because there was a window.
And I can open the door.
There's like,
And most of the time they were sleeping on top of each other.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm stuck in this.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Just quiet.
You have to be quiet, guys.
Can we turn off the lights?
Sheil, want to cut the light?
And so we're gonna simulate like the sounds of like what Immaculée and the 6 other people heard while they were in the bathroom hiding.
Oh, you got to stay in.
Like
We're gonna keep you in there to make you simulate like being in there for a long
We're gonna keep you
time.
in there till 9:26. So it's like 7 minutes.
Try to keep quiet and like don't move.
Yeah. And if any of you guys you guys can't come out, wifey, your hands.
Wifey.
Okay.
Okay. So I wrote 2 poems for this presentation. One of them is supposed to be kind of like the aftermath of the genocide, and the other one is going to be about forgiveness and Immaculée's story about how she learned to forgive others. So, for now, I'm just going to read the first one. So the poem is called Means of Hell. Satan has spared us. We are left here broken and bruised, with nothing but hope to keep us going. Sometimes hope fails us. The thick darkness suffocates every last sliver of light. The open wound never heals. Our love for this world is diminishing. We're desperate for a sign that we will one day forget about this. Happiness is like our white whale. We pine and pine for it in the coming years, but the desired feeling of bliss never arrives. We live our lives feeling fleeting moments of pleasure, almost as if the key to our happiness is sitting at the tips of our fingers, teasing and mocking us, knowing we'll never capture it. Our faith is wasted on an illusion, and in the end, we all die by our own hands.
Okay, so for my part of the presentation, I decided to do a news broadcast because it was a very important aspect in Immaculate's life when she was hiding in the bathroom and going through the genocide. Immaculate was in that bathroom for 3 months, but she still wanted to be aware of the world, so she would listen in on the radio or of the sound that played when the pastor was watching TV, and she would listen to the news updates from foreign news channels such as BBC, since as Emily said before, that local news channels would mostly be propaganda and encouraging Hutus to kill the Tutsis. And so the only way Immaculate was able to get trustworthy news about the Rwandan Patriotic Front's process or something about her family, it was through those Western news stations, most often being BBC. And that's why in my news report, I was like a reporter for BBC, and I reported about like updates during the early stages of the genocide. And I also included a clip of the propaganda, such as the local news channels, such as the RTLR.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Breaking News. Today's report will be on the recent outburst of killings in Rwanda. The ethnic violence in the Rwandan capital Kigali is now spreading throughout the country, aid officials have said. Tens of thousands of people are believed to have died since Rwanda's president died in a suspicious plane crash on the 6th of April. The killing has mainly been carried out by Hutu gangs. More specifically, the government militia called the Interahamwe, who blamed Tutsi rebels for downing President Juvenal Habyarimana's plane in a rocket attack on April 6th of this year, 1994. The president of Burundi was also killed. Witnesses in Kigali say Hutu soldiers have been hacking Tutsi civilians to death with machetes in the street. They have also set up roadblocks, checking each passing person's identity cards and killing those who are Tutsi. The Interahamwe have been supplying alcohol, drugs, food, and shelter to jobless young men who are being tempted to join daily. Groups of soldiers from the Interahamwe have been roaming the streets, searching for Tutsi inyenzi, which mean cockroaches, to kill. They also have blocked Lake Kivu, the fastest way to escape the country and go to Zaire. They vowed to kill all the Tutsis and eliminate the race. A spokesman for the International Committee of the Red Cross, Jean-Luc Fedes, said hundreds of thousands of Rwandans had also been forced to leave their homes by the violence. The situation is catastrophic, not just in Kigali, but in the rest of Rwanda, he said. About 3,600 rebels from the mainly Tutsi Rwanda Patriotic Front, otherwise known as the RPF, have infiltrated the capital. The group has said it will continue to fight until the Hutu-dominated government stops the massacres. The RPF is currently moving to the city. Meanwhile, a Hutu-powered radio station has blown up. It is called RTLM, and this radio station switches back and forth between news about the fighting and chants of bombs inciting Hutus to slaughter too. Here's a clip of the radio station.
People ask me, good listeners, why do I hate all the Tutsi? I say, it's our history. The Tutsi were collaborators for the Belgian colonists. They stole our Hutu land. They whipped us. Now they have come back, these Tutsi rebels. They are cockroaches. They are murderers. Rwanda is our Hutu land.
The 420 Belgian United Nations peacekeepers present in Rwanda are expected to withdraw within the next few days. 10 of their numbers were killed by government troops when the fighting began 12 days ago. In the last few hours, an official from the RPF met with Rwandan ambassador in the Ugandan capital, Kampala, to discuss ways of ending this violence. But UN spokesman Mokhtar Gueye told reporters no accord had been reached. My impression is that the fighting is dying down in the capital. Unfortunately, we have no ceasefire agreement for the time being, he said. That is all we have for now. Stay tuned after the commercial for more news.
Okay, you guys can come out now. So that was only like 7 minutes of sitting in a crowded space, and they'd have to do it for hours when there were actual like threats and people walking around in the house like with weapons trying to kill them. So you can just like try to imagine how hard that would be.
So near the end of the story, the polarization continued at the roadblocks, and the Interahamwe started not to care if you were Hutu or Tutsi. And this is seen in the book when the two other women that joined Immaculée came in, and from the pastor's daughter, they had to make the journey from the pastor's daughter house to the pastor's house, and they managed to get by with, like, while they were Tutsi, because the pastor's daughter dressed them up as the Interahamwe, and the book says they screamed like crazy women. They shouted Hutu power and killed the Tutsi dogs. The killers loved seeing them act like that. They'd tell them to keep up the good work and wave them through. So this shows just how they started not really checking the identity cards, and as long as you seemed to want to kill the Tutsis, they believed in you and let you pass the roadblocks. In the end, the genocide lasted 3 months. Immaculée was trapped in the bathroom from April 7th to late June when the Operation Turquoise came in. Operation Turquoise was a French project which helped provide safe zones for the Tutsis, and Immaculée was put in one of these French camps. And she did have a relatively happy ending because she was saved, and she made many close friends in the camp actually. And she found a long-lost family friend named Alois, who gave her a home long enough for her to actually find a job at the UN. And she was able to find this job through trial and error.
So forgiveness was a very evident theme throughout this book, along with having hope and trusting in God. And because during her time inside the bathroom, Immaculée could only pray to God, and she had her dad's rosary, which helped her like focus on praying to God. And there was this constant battle inside Immaculée whether to forgive the Hutus that have killed so many Tutsis or to take revenge. And so here are like the sections in the book where this is seen. So this is the first quote. But in that moment, I wished I had a gun so that I could kill every Tutsi I saw. I wanted to kill Hutu I saw. I wanted to kill everyone, even Tutsis. If I'd had an atomic bomb, I would have dropped it on Rwanda and killed everyone I have in our land, in our stupid, hateful land. And this was shown on page 88. And this shows that Immaculée's faith is slowly like leaving her, and she doesn't want to forgive, and like she wants to kill all the people that have wronged the Tutsis.
So the next quote is when she prays to God and she manages to actually forgive all the Hutus that have actually killed her family. And Immaculée is no longer questioning whether to forgive or not. And when she's even given the opportunity to kill, to have revenge on all the Hutu that had killed her family, she rejects the idea, because the French officer who saved her offers to kill any Hutu she wants him to. He'll give her justice. All Immaculée had to do was give him the names of the Hutus who were searching for her, or the ones who have killed her parents and brother, and he'll have them killed for her. However, Immaculée decided that all she wanted was peace, and she told the captain that Hutus aren't evil, it's just these killers, they've been tricked by the devil. And Immaculée goes on to pray to God to touch the captain's heart with forgiveness. Then she prayed again for the killers to put down their machetes and beg for God's mercy. This shows how she doesn't want to fight anymore. She just wants peace, and she is willing to forgive.
So later we're gonna start a little bit of like a class discussion, but for now, like here we have some reasons on like whether Immaculée should forgive or not. And here the first thing we talk about is like why she should not forgive. And it's like, I think it's pretty obvious, like the killers were they used very barbaric methods to murder all these Tutsi people, such as like cutting off their limbs and using machetes, and they also gathered people in churches and slaughtered them in the churches. And here we write why she should forgive, which is if she doesn't forgive, if you think about it, like her whole life is just going to be spent on her like thinking about this event and how so many people have wronged her family, and so many people have wronged her and all the people that she loved. So I guess you could think of forgiveness as closure for her, as finally she can move on from this event, and she'll be able to live her life happily and well. So we have a class discussion, so we just want to ask for like you volunteers to share whether or not do you guys think Immaculée should have forgiven the people who like the Hutus who were the killers. Any like volunteers? Lydia.
I think that she should forgive, but not for them, but for herself, because if you spend your whole time thinking about things that other people have done, like you'll be able to get on with it.
It was very mature for her to forgive instead of kill, because it just shows that like she evolved as a different person through all of this.
Okay, so
Next class discussion.
okay, so it's just gonna work. So we'd like to end our presentation with a poem about forgiveness and the power of forgiveness.
Do you want to hit the button on the AV receiver because it'll stop that static? It's kind of slightly the one that says power.
No, just turn it on.
The large black box.
Got it.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay.
Now everyone's
so
mind feels better.
Okay, so this poem is called "Pardon the Demons." What we call a delusion, what people call a delusion, we call our savior. The reason why we rise in the morning, the reason why we go to bed smiling. The time of suffering has passed. Together we fly above our home, the wind caressing our tired bodies, comforting us. The sun's warmth healing the once open wounds. We glance at the pools of red and brown below us, the knives and guns replaced by hugs and kisses. The screams of terror have vanished. We are left with nothing but our eternal love for others. A timid hand reaches out to grab those who have wronged us. Forgiveness is all we have to offer, and for now, that's enough.
All right, thank you. Very nice, very effective. I think especially those that were in the